The people have spoken. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome to my channel. My name's Michelle, creator of Muse Infused, and today is going to be an interesting day. This is my first story time. I posted on my Instagram, which is, I'll put it right down here, a poll of what story time you would like to hear. And the choices were my ex-boyfriend's crazy mom or my scary witchcraft story. So I'm definitely going to film both, but everyone voted that they wanted this one first. So this one is going to be posted first, and then I will also do the scary witchcraft story because I think it's something that would be really interesting that you guys would like to see. Also, if you want to see any of my social media posts, I do a lot of modeling, so I post a lot of my modeling photos on the account that I've linked here below. If you want to see me in my everyday life and kind of my personal account, it is right here. So definitely follow both of those socials to keep up and see what goes on in my crazy world. Let's get started. I dated this guy when I was 16. We were in high school. He was a year older than I was. I wouldn't consider the relationship long distance, but the fact that we were both young and I haven't really driven really far, and I would use my parents' car. So we wouldn't see each other that often. He was normally the one that would drive to see me, but that would be the occasional weekend, every once in a while. So it was considered long distance at the time. And don't look at my nail. I know, it's broken. It's so sad. I'm getting it fixed this weekend. So basically, I met him a long time ago. Our dads were friends. So that's kind of how we knew each other, and we ended up just kind of getting close and always kind of flirting with each other. And then we ended up getting each other's numbers, and that's when the relationship started to really become a thing. So then he ended up asking me to be his girlfriend, and we would go to an award banquet together and stuff, and that's kind of where we did our first debut as a couple. And yeah, so basically that's how the relationship started. I knew his dad more than I knew his mom. So I would see his dad more often. I would talk to his dad more often. Me and his dad were rather close, so we just kind of, the three of us got along. It was only later in the relationship when I met his mother, who at first I couldn't really gauge if she liked me or not, but later on it became very clear that she didn't. So basically, the story that I want to talk about the most is that it was March break, and I wanted to spend time with him, and because we both didn't have school, we were planning on trying to spend a couple days together. So after pleading and begging and compromising with our parents, they finally said yes to me staying at their house for, I think it was 5 days, so that we could spend time together. And I'm pretty sure there was still snow at the time, so we would go snowmobiling and do, hang out with his friends, get to know, people in his life, because I've never really been to his hometown before. So I ended up going, and everything seemed okay. This was the first time that I was really staying at his place and getting to know his family. So it was a little bit nerve-wracking, but I was pretty confident, and I knew his dad liked me, so everything seemed to be okay. But then I got there, and I'm pretty sure I got there kind of late, so I didn't really fully talk to his family too much. I mostly was just spending time with him. So while I was spending time with him, we were in the guest bedroom, which is where I was staying, and we just ended up talking really late. So I think we ended up talking till 2 in the morning, and then both of us just passed out together in the bedroom. So, and I'm talking we were fully clothed. I was in the same clothes that I wore when I arrived there. So it was super clear that we ended up just completely passing out while we were having our conversations, and neither of us noticed. So then in the morning, all of a sudden, I hear his name called super loud. So we're gonna call him Bob in the story. So all I hear is, Bob, yelled from the living room. So he immediately jumps out of bed. It scares us both. And I'm sitting in the bedroom and I'm hearing his mom talking to Bob and just like letting him have it. I'm sitting in the room like just listening to what's going on outside of the door, and she's like calling me a bitch. She's saying, oh, like I don't want this bitch to come into my house and not respect my rules. This sluttiness is not allowed. I want this slut out of here. Like basically just like tearing into him about me. So he comes back in the room and he didn't say anything, okay? Like she's like dragging me through the dirt at this point and he's not saying anything back to her. I guess he's just taking it. I don't even know. So then he comes back in the room and he's like, oh, she's so mad. Now we're gonna call this lady Marie. So Marie is just livid, right? She's so pissed off. I was like, well, why didn't you say anything? And I was like, we literally just fell asleep. Like, it wasn't like we were like intentionally, it wasn't like we were like underneath the covers and like sleeping together. And he's like, yeah, no, she didn't want to hear anything. I couldn't say anything because she was just so mad. So I put on my big girl panties and I was like, you know what? If you're not gonna defend us, I will. I go out into the kitchen and she's like angrily making breakfast. And note that this was at like 7:30 in the morning, so it wasn't even like we were like sleeping in the same room together for that long. Like we passed out for a couple hours and just, oh my God, it was so bad. So then I go out and I was like, you know what, this is my first morning and I don't want it to be on a bad start. So I'm just gonna apologize and be the bigger person and like, you know, just explain the situation so that she knows we weren't like purposely going against her rules. I say, hey, you know, I'm really sorry about last night. We were honestly just talking and we ended up falling asleep. I didn't mean to disrespect you. I just wanna let you know that like I really respect your rules and this will never happen again. It was just a total accident and I hope you understand. She was not very receptive. She was saying, well, I should be calling your parents and telling them exactly what was going on. I don't understand how you feel comfortable doing these things in my house. And I'm still saying like, no, you know, like my parents would understand. And she's like, I don't believe you. And I'm like, no, like, you know, you can call them and tell them like that's fine, but I'm just letting you know the context of everything and so that you know that it wasn't done purposefully. That was the first morning. It just got worse from here. So basically, I'm just trying to think of the main things that happened. So the morning where she was calling me a bitch and a slut, and then they had this weird rule where it was like you had to eat everything on your plate and like the mom would serve you. I have anxiety, so like when I get really anxious, where I was totally anxious around this lady the whole time. So whenever I get really anxious, I get kind of nauseous and it's hard for me to eat when I'm feeling nauseous. So each dinner, I'm like super stressed out because like I'm just so nervous. I'm already nauseous. She's giving me like massive servings of all this food. And another thing to note is like, I grew up in a very like healthy kind of family. So healthy eating, I should say. So like we would have a lot of veggies. We were vegan for the longest time, you know? So like all of our portions were smaller and just like, it was more fresh stuff or like raw foods rather than, you know, the food that she was serving, which would be like potato salad or like mashed potatoes and steak and like meat and, you know, just a lot of heavy, dense food that I personally just wasn't used to. So I'm just trying to eat out of respect. And I remember one time we're eating and it's like this huge, heavy plate of food and like I was so nervous. I was so nauseous. I honestly thought I was gonna have to get up from the table and run to the bathroom and throw up because I was just so unbelievably nauseous. So because I was feeling nauseous, I wasn't eating all of this food. And she looks over at me and she goes, if you don't like my cooking, you can make something yourself. And I was like, no, this is fine, like it's okay, like just so rude and so like attacking me. And then this other time we're sitting at dinner, it was just so weird. We're having like a normal conversation. My family would make their own homemade bread and we would buy like the grain and grind up the flour. That's just what we've always done. I don't know, it's just normal to me. So like, I don't know if this is like abnormal for other people. But we were having this conversation. It was just general conversation. I'm saying like, oh yeah, me and Bob were like trying to make this cake, but then we realized we didn't have flours. And then I was saying something like, but our flour grinder was broken, so we had to use a super old one. And just having a conversation. I thought it was funny or whatever. And she goes, you guys grind your own flour? And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, well, you're not gonna find any freshly baked bread here, and we don't grind our own flour, and I'm not about to go to the store and buy a machine so that you can have fresh flour. And I was like, oh my God, that's not what I was like, no, I'm not entailing that's a standard for me. I'm just saying, like, I was just having a conversation. I don't know, I was so freaked out, so I didn't even really know what to say. And it was just, everything I said, she would bag on. Just always beating me down, saying, well, we don't do this, and mocking the ways that I did things or my family did things. She was just always having an argument with me, always, like coming at me for the things that I would say that my family just does. Like, just anytime I would have any sort of conversation about my life or my family, would automatically find something to argue with me about. So that was just the main conversation that I would have in general with Marie. Crazy. So one of the craziest things she did was one day she was working and I offered to bake dinner. And I was like, oh, we can make like spaghetti. It's something simple, it's something easy, and that's what I'll make. And by the time you come home, it'll be done and it'll be ready and I'll eat. And she was like, okay, sure, like that's fine, whatever. And apparently she told me not to use the whole pound of ground beef that was in the freezer. But even as I think about it now, like it was a frozen pound of ground beef. How am I supposed to split that in half when it's frozen? Like, am I supposed to get a hacksaw and like saw into it? I don't even understand where that was coming from. But at the time, I totally didn't even realize that that's what she said. So a couple hours before making dinner, I took out the pound of ground beef and put it on the counter on a plate to thaw. She came home earlier than I expected, and it was as I was starting to get ready to cook dinner. So she comes into the house. The entrance is like by the kitchen, so she walks into the kitchen and sees the pound of ground beef on the counter. And like she lost her damn mind. She started yelling at me. She's like, did you take out the pound of ground beef? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, you can't refreeze that. And I was like, just trying to be like chill about it. And I was like, yeah, I didn't really know how to split it. Like, is there a problem? Like, it's fine. We'll just have kind of meaty sauce. Like, if that's okay. Like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to thaw a whole pound or whatever. And she got so mad. She picked up the pound of ground beef. Now, I'm standing at the counter beside the sink. She's like all the way at the end of the counter, which was at like nearly the table at the other end of the room. She picks up the pound of ground beef and she whips it. And I don't know if she was aiming for me or if she was it basically landed right in the sink right beside me. It like missed me by this much. It was so crazy. I like instantly got hot, like tears came to my eyes. I was like trying to hold my shit together and I was like, oh my God, this lady just threw meat at me. Like, oh my God. And I mean, luckily because Bob's dad really liked me, he ran after her and they're arguing in the living room and she's saying how stupid and incompetent I am and just like going off, and he's saying that that's not appropriate and he can't do that and all of this stuff. And I'm in the kitchen like, oh my God, like what do I do? I was like so upset. And then I ended up making dinner and everything was fine. The sauce was great. Like it was just so, but she did not talk to me the entire meal. It was so unbelievably like scary and humiliating. And it was just so brutal. Like so many other things where she would say, like I used eggs to make peanut butter cookies. and I ended up using all of the eggs. Now, in my mind, that's not really a big deal. I mean, I understood that they lived in the country, so it took a little bit longer to go to like a grocery store to get more groceries. But she basically was like, where are the eggs? And I'm like, oh, like I made cookies. And then she was like, we don't have any eggs. You used all the eggs? And I was like, well, there was like 2 eggs left and I needed 2 eggs. So yeah, I used the eggs. And I'm like, but we have cookies. And she's like, I hate peanut butter, and storms out of the room. And I'm like, oh my God, just the whole time walking on eggshells. It was probably one of the worst experiences of my life. Because I'm a very like deep thinker kind of person, I'm trying to figure out like, why doesn't she like me? I mean, I was polite, I was nice, I'm trying to like have this relationship and get to know his family, and just to no avail. Everything I did was not good enough, or it was wrong, or it was something. So I think a lot of it was the fact that Bob was an only child, okay? And she had him when she was like older. So sort of like a miracle baby in that sense. So I feel like she wanted him all to herself kind of thing. So she didn't like the fact that he would, you know, take weekends to come visit me or whatever the case may be. That's just kind of my like analysis of it. But also, he was terrified of his mom. Like, honestly, it was so disheartening because she would be so rude to me and he would never stand up for me. He was always like, just would bend over backwards for her. And I mean, I don't know if this is normal. I mean, it's not normal in like my family. So like, I always thought that this was kind of weird. But like, he would kiss his mom on the lips, like, good morning and good night. Like, he was like, had so many things he like had to do to like please her. Also, like, there was like all these huge paintings that he did when he was a kid, like framed all over the house. And I was like, okay, that's cute when you're like 5, but like this kid's like 18. Like, I just found it kind of weird how much he was treated like a kid and how he kind of acted like a kid around them. Anyways, it was just a week of hell. I was so happy to go home. It was just such an embarrassing and humiliating time for me. There was all kinds of other things that happened that went wrong that didn't have to do with her. So bottom line, the whole week was just so shit. But yeah, that's my crazy ex-boyfriend's mom story. She hated me from the get-go, just did not hold back on her showing me that she hated me, and literally threw a pound of meat at me. But I made it out alive, and then I think a couple months later we broke up, so I never had to see her ever again, and I thank my lucky stars for that every day. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. I'll be filming my scary witchcraft story time soon too, so keep an eye out for that. Definitely hit that like and subscribe button if you already haven't subscribed, because we're gonna have lots of fun content. And let me know in the comments below if you like story times or if you wanna see more makeup tutorials or whatever. I also have a couple cool videos that I'm gonna be posting very soon, so also keep an eye out for that. It was awesome talking to you guys. Thanks for listening to my very humiliating story. And I hope to see you guys in the next video.